So you mentioned, that there were a lot of things that, a lot of things in the system since the Great Depression that were supposed to have prevented something like that from happening again.
Right.
But obviously we saw a lot of innovations, some would call, in the financial market that led to some risks in the system that maybe weren't anticipated. Do you think that those have been taken care of? Do you think that we have the safety nets in place now?
Totally not taken care of. This is interesting. I never knew how much leverage was being used. I should have known, I guess, but I didn't know how much leverage was being used by hedge funds, by banks. I always worried about counterparties on derivatives, but I didn't know. And even 10, 15 years ago, I'd read about notional derivatives, in the notional amount of derivatives on the book of banks and stuff. I always, in the back of my mind, when the Bear Stearns hedge funds divulged their problems in the summer of 2007, it was an eye-opener. And that's really when we turned very cautious here. Because they were using 30-to-1 leverage to buy mortgage-backed securities of dubious quality. And I knew that housing was an issue, but I didn't know the leverage. And the leverage, you go down 3%, 30-to-1, and you're broke. And that's what happened. And I don't think, no, I don't. Have we ratcheted down the leverage? I guess so. I have to say, Obama's comments last week, I think he's completely right about regulating the banks and getting rid of the trading and taking it back basically to Glass-Steagall. I completely agree with that. I don't necessarily think that there ought to be the populist bashing that goes with it, because I think I think you need kind of people to come together here. I mean, the public is upset. I'm upset. How can you not be upset with what's going on? And so there's plenty of blame to go around. But I think the reforms need to happen. I think the only way they're going to happen is if there's bipartisan support. And interestingly enough, on re-regulating banks, I think there is bipartisan support. So I'm hoping that something, there's things that have gone on that are just make me crazy. And this will tie into what I think about what's going on now and what's happened with the markets. Sorry, I can keep going on and on, but anyone who watches the market closely, like I do, sees what's wrong with this market, which is you have quant funds, you have day traders, you have a level of conviction that we used to say, Alan Abelson used to say, a mile wide and an inch deep. In other words, there's no conviction. And so you see huge swings. How can you have a public trust the market when they buy a stock in the morning and in the afternoon it could be down 3 or 4% for reasons having nothing to do with anything other than some math model and somebody pressing a computerized button? People got put in jail for market timing mutual funds, and some of the things they did were obviously shady, but people historically have tried to time mutual funds, not necessarily in the ways that were gimmicked in the early part of this decade or the last decade, but people have always tried to beat the market, but you can't. So people get put in jail for market timing mutual funds. But here's people, some of the quant funds that trade stocks hundreds of times a day for pennies. Is that good? Where's the regulation on that? I don't see any regulation on that. It's ridiculous. So because it destroys confidence, it can cause tremendous market spills. It exacerbates declines. It exacerbates advances. It has nothing to do with underlying investing. It has to do with things that I don't think I'm only beginning to understand, and people don't necessarily understand. I think it's destructive. I think if the SEC had wanted to crack down, the SEC could have. I hold the SEC responsible for not taking more steps to regulate the markets. And I still don't know. To the answer to your original question, no, I don't think they've taken the risks. I think there's still enormous risks in terms of non-fundamental factors. I think there are enough fundamental factors to worry about, but I think the non-fundamental factors are incredibly dangerous and still there.